You know those sermons when you come to church and you feel like those sermons are very personal? You know, when you come in, you sit down like, I'm going to go to church today, I'm just going to enjoy church, and then the pastor gets up and preaches that sermon, and like, oh great, he brought me up specifically. He's preaching to me specifically. Now everybody knows my problem because that sermon was about my personal problem. Anybody ever experienced that before? I know I have. So this sermon may come across as being one of those heavy sermons today. If you have your Bibles, turn to James chapter 3 and verse 3 with me. But this sermon, because it can come across that way, I want to start out today by having a little bit of fun. I'm going to put you on the spot here. And if you're listening online, which I want you to do this test also. So everybody in here participate with this. It's going to be fun, okay? This is going to be fun. It's not a hard test. I just need you to say 2 words. That's all I need you to say. It's just so simple. So everybody ready? Everybody at least into it enough to do this test? Say it loud enough so the people listening online can hear you, okay? So here's the first word, all right? Everybody, can you say Irish? Irish. That was very good. See, you guys are experts. Can everybody say wristwatch? Wristwatch. Okay, now everybody say Irish wristwatch. That was awful. That was terrible. Yeah, now you've run into a problem, right? Everybody tried it. Okay, I don't know what went wrong. I asked you to do something pretty simple there. You did Irish just fine. You did wristwatch just fine. And to say it together, that was awful. So I'm going to give you another try. On the count of 3, I'm going to ask you to just say Irish wristwatch, just like that, okay? That fast. You ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, well, you're not getting any better. That was fantastic. Everybody still has a problem with that. We'll learn, we'll grow, we'll get better in the future. All I asked you to do is just say 2 words, just 2 words. It shouldn't have been that difficult. Does anybody feel a little subpar right now? Like, I really should have been able to nail that one, but for some reason, I fell short. The reason I did that is because it paints a good illustration for what I want to talk about this morning. We, as people, have a problem controlling our tongues. We really do. And I don't mean in the Irish wristwatch category. I'm talking about in speech and in conversation. We do have a problem controlling our tongues. Our tongues can be used for building people up. We know that we can encourage people and build them up, but it can also be used to bring a death sentence to relationships. Our words can ruin relationships. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me, is one of the biggest proverbial lies of our times. We heard that when we were kids. You know, when somebody said something mean to us, we might chant that. You know, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And then we go cry somewhere alone when they don't see us, because the words did hurt us. The words did have an impact on our lives. So many relationships are destroyed because of words that can never be taken back. We've all been there. I've been hurt by words to the point where I would have preferred the sticks and stones, you know, because the words were so heavy. The words hurt, it cut so deep. I would have rather somebody just do the sticks and stones approach because the words were that heavy in my life. Words can be a tool of demolition. And we all have experienced it. We may have even done it to somebody else. We may have caused pain in somebody else's life through words. James, the brother of Jesus, apparently struggled with these issues in his own life. He apparently did struggle with them. At the very least, he saw his fellow disciple Peter struggle with it. Because we know Peter, when you look at his story in the Bible, like, yeah, that guy spoke, and then he thought. That's just how it went with Peter. So at least he saw that, but I'm sure James struggled with this issue of words in his own life. James felt that the topic of the tongue was so important that he included it in the book named after him, in the book of James. He devoted a decent-sized portion of this book to the topic of the tongue. Let's look at some of the things he said about it. James chapter 3, starting in verse 3. It says, "Indeed, we put bits in horses' mouths that they may obey us, and we turn their whole body. Look also at ships, although they are so large and are driven by fierce winds, they are turned by a very small rudder wherever the pilot desires. Even so the tongue is a little member and boasts great things. See how great a forest a little fire kindles. James points out that a horse, which can outrun and outmuscle any human being. Try to get in a wrestling match with a horse. You lose. You don't even have to try. We've already got their winner. That horse will outmuscle you, will outrun you. Any match you want to put up against it. It will do its job. It will beat you. And it's controlled by a tiny bit that you put in its mouth. You put this tiny bit in the horse's mouth, and the whole animal is controlled by that little bit. The rider pulls on the reins, and the horse will turn right or left, or it will stop based on the bit that you put in that horse's mouth. A giant ship is driven by fierce winds in a storm, and it's steered by a tiny rudder underneath the water. That tiny rudder that moves underneath the water that we don't even look at when we see a ship because it's underneath the surface. We don't see that rudder, but that ship is steered because of that rudder. A massive vessel turns in the direction that the rudder tells it to go. But then there's the tongue. James says, look at the horse. We can control that beast by that little bit that we put in its mouth. That huge ship, there's a little tiny piece underneath the water in comparison to that ship, and it steers that whole ship. But then there's the tongue. It's such a tiny part of our bodies, but it can take our lives in different directions. Just that one small piece of our body. And it doesn't take any time at all before we alter everything with the words that we use. You can use words and change the course, change the direction of life for yourself and for other people, just because of the words that you use. The last picture James gives us in verse 5 is the picture of a forest fire. It only takes a little spark to start a forest fire and ruin people's lives forever. We hear the stories of California, that's kind of on the news all the time in California. We hear the forest fires. People's homes are destroyed. They lose their livelihoods. And they don't lose their livelihoods because suddenly a huge forest fire appeared. No, they lose it because of a spark. The spark is what ruined their life, not necessarily the forest fire, because if the spark never happened, the forest fire wouldn't have happened. So a little spark can ruin people's lives. And James is using this illustration. He wants us to know the importance of controlling our speech. The words that you say can build somebody up, or they can tear a life apart. People have committed suicide over the words that people have said. Your words are powerful, and James wants to get the message out. Controlling your speech is something that we all should focus on. Control your tongue. I know it's just a small member of your body, but it is powerful. So focus on this. The nice thing about his approach is the fact that James isn't just pointing fingers. He's including a bunch of people. He's not saying, you need to focus on this, where I'm talking to you personally. No, he's talking to a lot of people at this time, and it's including us. Look at verse 7. It says, for every kind of beast and bird, of reptile and creature of the sea is tamed and has been tamed by mankind. But no man can tame the tongue. It is an unruly evil full of deadly poison. James makes a really good point here. We have learned to tame whales. We can tame tigers. We've even learned to tame the most ferocious of all creatures, a chihuahua. Just ask them. They are the biggest animal on the planet. Just ask any chihuahua. They believe it. But we've learned to tame any animal. You pick an animal, and mankind has learned to tame the creatures. So we've learned to do that. But James just presented us with a seemingly impossible or a hopeless situation here. No man can tame the tongue. It's full of poison. Why is James taking the time to inform us of a problem that we can do nothing to fix? No man can tame the tongue. It's because this problem requires God to solve it. Because just think of you on that day when you're not feeling so good. How you doing on that one member of your body? How do we control that when we're not feeling good? Not so good. This isn't something that you're going to be able to fix. This is something that it takes God to fix. By the way, this isn't a sermon about the use of curse words or profanities and stuff like that, even though these are a way that we can use our tongue improperly. This isn't a sermon based on that. But since you brought it up, here's a verse to talk about that. Let's just throw it in there since you brought it up anyway. So look at 2 Timothy chapter 2 and verse 16. It says, "But shun profane and idle babblings, for they will increase to more ungodliness." Words influence people. Words always influence people. They can even influence the person who is speaking the words. Words can influence you and will influence you. When we feel that it's acceptable to use words that even the lost world rates, we can say this many of these words in this movie, and then we got to move the rating up. So even these words that non-Christians rate because they're inappropriate or they're just profane words, it leads to us being desensitized to the other things that are wrong in life when we use these kind of words. They will bring about additional ungodliness, just like the verse says. When you allow this, it brings additional ungodliness. But this isn't what I'm going to focus on today. I just threw it in there because you brought it up. I'm going to get back to the sermon, but I just threw that in there because you brought it up. Or maybe I prepared it in advance. We may never know. It just happens. But anyway, back to the sermon that I want to preach here. The words that James is referring to are the words that we allow in our conversations. And those words are included, but the words in our conversation from day to day. How many times have we looked back over the conversation and we thought, I could have handled that better? I definitely could have handled that better. Now, there could still be pride in the situation where we're not going to admit it to the other person yet, but we at least figured it out ourselves. I could have handled that better. As we walk away like, man, I could have handled that better. They don't need to know that, but I do know that. I do know personally I should have done that better. Or maybe we said something out of anger that we really didn't mean at all. It was just something that we could jab. We wish we could take it back, but we can't. It's like putting toothpaste back into the tube after you squeeze it out. It's just never going to happen. You cannot do it. Once those words are out, the words are out. You can't put them back. If you ever want to have your feelings hurt, or you just want to feel personally attacked, read the book of James. Read the book of James. Go home and read the book of James and then close it and go, this is what James does. Tact is not his strong suit. He doesn't ease you into anything. James doesn't waste time on formalities. He's a straightforward kind of writer. He just tells you what he wants to say. He brings the problem to light and then he lets you deal with it. He just drops it and then it's yours. I said what I had to say. I'm out. Now you can deal with what I just said. Look at this next verse as he continues to speak about the tongue. Verse 9. With it we bless our Lord and Father, and with it we curse people who are made in the likeness of God. From the same mouth come blessings and cursings. My brothers, these things ought not to be so. Does he have a point? Yes. Do we want to hear it? No. No, we don't. But he said it. Now what are you going to do with it? That's how James approaches all the topics. Like, hey, you use that same mouth to thank God and to praise God, and then you talk to your brothers and sisters in Christ like you do, the people that are made in the image of God, you talk to them that way with the same mouth you praise him with? These things ought not to be so. And then he's done. He says, I'm out. It's your problem. Like, thanks, James. Really appreciate that. James is trying to get a very important message out to believers. At salvation, you were made new. You were made new. You were designed to reflect the character of God who gave everything to save you. He gave everything to have a relationship with you. You are designed to reflect his character. He gave you a new heart. He gave you a new spirit. Why are you spending all your time operating under that old programming? Why are you using your tongue in a way that is not reflecting God's character? Why are you doing that? You praise him, good for you, and then you curse him with that same tongue? These things ought not to be so. And James is like, I'm out. That's your problem. I'm gone. He just drops it in your lap and you're like, okay, now I have to do something with this. He's a loving guy. James is a loving guy, but he's just one of those tough loving guys. Just, here's your problem, deal with it, and I'm gone. The good works that God saved you to are the fruit of the Spirit. Does your conversation match His character? Do the words that you use from day to day match the character of God? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness. Do your words match that? Well, everything but kindness. No, that's one fruit. It's not the fruits of the Spirit, it is the fruit of the Spirit. That is all one thing. So you're not going to be able to say, well, I'm using this fruit today and not this fruit. It's all one fruit. Kindness is part of the fruit of the Spirit, and those are the works that you were saved unto. You were saved unto good works. That's it. Does your speech match His character? And all of us are sitting here thinking, I wish he'd get off this topic, but that's the only topic I have today, so you're stuck. That's all I'm going to talk about is our speech, the way we use our tongue. James is a get straight to the point kind of guy. He just gets right there. But before he finishes his speech on this topic, he hits us with a common sense type illustration. Always nice when they throw common sense into the conversation. Then it's just like, okay, yeah, that just means what it means. It's easy. Look at verse 11. Does a spring send forth fresh water and bitter from the same opening? Can a fig tree, my brethren, bear olives, or a grapevine bear figs? Thus no spring yields both salt water and fresh. The words that come out of your mouth should never be unhealthy. They should never be unhealthy. So many times we use words based on how we feel towards the person that we're speaking to or about. The words that we use, I'm not happy with you, so the words reflect my feelings about the person, or the person I'm talking about might not be kind because of the way I feel towards them. These are the moments James is referring to. This is what he's talking about. You are not going to tame that tongue by yourself. If you think you've got this, well, say it out loud, and then you heard something that the tongue shouldn't have said to you. That is a lie. You're not going to do this. You're not going to do it by yourself. You're going to need God's help with that task, because our tongues are unruly. That we use them based on our feelings. And we shouldn't do that, but we do that. Sometimes we let toxic words come out of our mouths because of the bitterness that we're holding on to. As I feel bitter towards you, or feel bitter because of something you've done to me in the past, I'm going to say words that will hurt you. I will bring up the past. I will jab you with just a sharp statement, because you need to pay for what you did, because I'm holding on to bitterness. Sometimes we just think that the other person is somehow lesser than ourselves. So we talk to them on a lower level than we would want to hear ourselves. And sometimes it's because we never learned self-control in our own lives. And we use our tongue in unhealthy ways. Whatever the case may be, James is telling us that we're going to need help. You're going to need God's help with this, because that tongue is such a little member of your body, but can destroy people's lives. You're going to need God's help with this one, because these things ought not to be so. You're not going to get that tongue tamed all by yourself, so don't even try to make that your first move. You don't leave here today and like, okay, I need to work on this. No, he needs to work on this. And you need to yield to his leadership on this. It's time to surrender. It's time to realize that you're dependent on God. Not, hey, I got this, God, and look what I'm going to do for you, and it's going to be so impressive. The creator of all the universe that spoke everything into existence, when you control your tongue, he's going to look at you and go, now that's impressive. I was able to speak all this into existence, but look what you did. I'm impressed now. Now I'm impressed. You're not going to impress God with your own efforts and your own actions. It's just not going to happen. This is a place where you say, God, I'm going to need your help. I'm going to need your help because I realize that this is a problem that I can't take on myself. I need to understand that I'm dependent on you. In the very next chapter, James is kind enough to give us the training manual for this tongue-taming accomplishment. You want to accomplish this? This is how you do it. Look at James 4 and verse 10. Humble yourselves in the sight of the Lord, and he will lift you up. It's not right for fresh water and bitter water to come from the same fountain. It is not right. If that's what you're producing, you're in the wrong. You are in the wrong. You have a broken fountain. Because it's not supposed to be producing both kinds of water. That water is bitter. When I talk to you, the water might be bitter, and then to you, the water's sweet. And that shouldn't be coming from the same source. James says, you got a broken fountain. You're not supposed to be producing those two different types of water from one fountain. It's not supposed to happen. So here's your recipe for success. Humble yourself. Humble yourself. Yield control. Surrender to God's leadership on that. Don't try to fix it yourself, because somebody's going to come by and they're going to irritate you, and suddenly bitter water's everywhere. Don't do it. You can't control this. You need to be following Christ. You need to follow him. I told you, if you want your feelings hurt, just read the book of James, because tact is not his strong suit. But truth is, he's really strong on the truth. He'll just pour that right on you. The tongue is such a small member of our body, but it can cause so much damage. It can cause more damage than all the other members put together. The tongue is a powerful, powerful tool. It only takes a spark to cause a forest fire. And it only takes a moment of conversation to end a relationship. Just takes one conversation, and you can destroy a relationship. It only takes one judgmental word to turn somebody away from Christ. And it's all in the power of the tongue. You can destroy people, or you can edify people. You can do both. James did not want God's people to overlook the power of the tongue. That old proverb, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me, is a complete lie. So let me give you a proverb to replace it with. This one's 100% true. Look at Proverbs chapter 18 and verse 21. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. You can destroy somebody, or you can build them up and bring life in the power of the tongue. And you have the ability to do both. You can do it. Chances are we have all done it. We've destroyed people with our conversations, and we've built people up with our conversations. You can either you can encourage them, or you can ruin them. And we all know we have the ability to do it. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. In the book of Isaiah, God gives a vision to Isaiah. And I've never made this connection before, but it's an awesome way to look at this. In this vision, he's overwhelmed by the holiness of God. He's looking at the holiness of God. He sees what's going on, and he's overwhelmed by it. He's watching as the angels sing, "Holy, holy, holy," to God in this vision. That's when he recognizes something about himself. Isaiah doesn't just recognize that he's unworthy in comparison to God. He searches a little bit deeper, and he realizes there's a deeper problem. The issue that Isaiah points out is an extremely noteworthy issue. He recognizes this about himself. Look at what he says about himself and his people. Isaiah chapter 6 and verse 5. So I said, "Woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. For my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts." Isaiah recognizes a problem that most people don't ever take the time to examine. My speech is unclean. I have a problem with the way I speak to people. My speech is unclean. The way I use my gift of speech is wrong. Then he says that it's not only him that has the problem. He surrounds himself with people of the same problem. I am influenced by my surroundings. I'm not only a man of unclean lips, I dwell among a people of unclean lips. Everybody's doing it. Everybody's doing it. There comes a point when wrong seems normal. Everybody's doing it. Everybody says it. Isaiah recognized that he was a man of unclean lips because he was surrounded by a people of unclean lips. And it does influence him. Once he saw God for who he was, he acknowledges his problem. When God's will is not being accomplished through your words, you have turned a gift into a weapon. And we all can do it. We all have done it. I wish I could say, I haven't done it and I want to show you how. I can't show you how because I don't know how to tame it myself. You need God for that. You need God to help you with that. This is the message that James wanted the family of God to hear. So many of us have broken fountains. You go home and the way you speak to your families, that's personal, isn't it? You might see me in the grocery store and like, hey, how you doing? After in the aisle, two aisles over, you were just treating that person in your family bad. But as soon as you saw me, like, hey, how's it going? How's your day? Nice weather we're having. All the things that we say. And then everything's great. And they're like, all right, I got to go. I leave. And then you look at that child. Like, and then now we have bitter water from where we just had fresh water. James says these things ought not to be so. We put out kind words and cruelty from the same mouth. This is where James tells us to humble ourselves. It's time to seek God's wisdom on the issue. You're going to need God for this. So look at Proverbs chapter 15 and verse 1. It says, a soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. When someone attacks us with harsh words, we typically attack back with harsh words. Because that's the move. You did it first. And that's isn't it amazing how God might see us? Well, they did it first. You ever had these conversations with your kids? God's having the same conversation with you. Does that make it right? No. All that. We do the same thing our children do. Well, they did it first. How old are you? 46. We do it. It's a reality. We do it. And when you put your age into that slot right there, it doesn't exactly feel like a proud moment, does it? How old are you? 46 years old. How are you acting? 4. What's going on? I need help. I need help. Okay, what I did was wrong. And I'm going to need your help with it because apparently I don't have the strength to do it on my own. I'm going to need your help with this. God tells us to answer people softly with self-control. Soft answers turn away wrath. Don't attack them back. Give them a soft answer. Give them self-control. Don't spray them down with bitter water because they did it to you first. That's exactly what we're doing. Here's some bitter water because I didn't like what you did to me. Let Christ take the lead in how you respond. When we're attacked during a conversation, we aren't usually thinking about how to protect the other person's feelings. Just be honest with yourself. That's not what we're focused on. You're not trying to focus on their feelings and how to protect their feelings. We aren't usually in the mindset of edifying them or helping them through their struggles. Why are you treating me bad? You must be going through something yourself. Otherwise, you wouldn't be treating me like this. We don't think about what they might be going through themselves and why they're behaving the way they do. No, we take it personally and then we attack them back. That doesn't help you, that doesn't help them, but that's how we handle a situation. Old programming. Let's go back to the old programming and let's handle it like that. And James says these things ought not to be so. Don't do it that way. We usually just try to verbally take them out at the knee. That's what we're going for. You said something mean to me. Well, check this out. This is going to be worse. I remember a time when I had to sit down with one of my children and have a conversation about something they said to the other child. They said the words, "I don't like you." And with those words, the other kid, that hit him hard. That was heavy because I can say I don't like you as a kid and sometimes it just rolls off the other kid's back, but this time it hurt the other one's feelings. That day I had to explain the power of the tongue to my kid. And by the way, it's never too early to teach your kids about the power of the tongue. Open up James chapter 3 and just read it to them. They might start crying because James isn't soft with his words. I feel like a bad person. James does that. He does that to you. But go ahead and teach them about the power of the tongue. When I asked this one child why they said what they said it's because of what the other kid did. It's because of what they did. So I asked them to tell me which way they would prefer me to talk to them if I was mad at them. And I said, I'm going to give you 2 options. Would you want me to say, I don't like the way you treated me? Or would you like me to say, I don't like you? Which way would you want me to handle that? And of course they said, I'd rather you say I don't like the way you treated me. Well, why? Because I don't want you to say you don't like me. You see, there's power in the words that we say. One of these statements says, I don't like your behavior, and the other one says, I don't like your identity. All we did was change it just a little bit. One, say, I don't like what you did to me, now we can talk. But when I say, I don't like you, then why would we talk? Why would we talk? There's power in our speech. There's power in the tongue. A simple change of words can prevent a forest fire from starting. Is it them that you don't like? No, it's what they did that I don't like. Then say that. Say that. Don't identify a person by their actions. It's the way you say those words. Both James and Solomon, you know, the wisest man that ever lived, Solomon, the one that wrote Proverbs, seems to be on the same page in so many areas. Let's look at what they both said. Proverbs chapter 14, verse 29 says, he who is slow to wrath has great understanding, but he who is impulsive exalts folly. James follows that up in James 1:19. It says, so then, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. Control your tongue. Before you react, let God lead. Let God lead. This is only going to happen when we come to God and honestly admit that we are people of unclean lips. I do have a problem. And I never know when it's going to hit. I just know that I have a problem. It's only going to happen when we humble ourselves and ask God to help us. Because this isn't something that you're going to tame. This is something that He can tame, that He can do through you. What you say is completely up to you. Nobody is controlling your words. What you say is completely up to you. Maybe it's time to call maintenance in and have them look at that broken fountain. Because we all understand we might have an issue. We might have an issue. Maybe you should call them in and say, hey, I got a broken fountain here. Can you do something? And in order for him to do something with that broken fountain, you're going to have to humble yourself and understand that you're dependent on him and let him work. Don't try to do it for him. Let him work. Strangers need to see the love of God flowing from your lives. Your families need to see the love of God flowing from your lives. And families, those are the ones that we hurt the most with our words. Why? Where are they going to go? They love me. They absolutely adore me. Where are they going to go? I can treat them like dirt. Remember we hurt the ones we love? Why? Why do we do that? Why do we spray bitter water at those people and then the stranger walks by and we treat them so nice? The one that's never done anything for us or anything, we put on the show. And then we get back to our anger here in a minute. Why do we do that? James says these things ought not to be so. It's not just words. If you think the noise coming out of your mouth in conversation are just words, it's not just words. That is not all that's happening. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. And you've got to control that. And you're going to need help doing it because you don't have the ability to do it on your own. So speak life. Speak love and speak kindness. That's what people need to see. You may be familiar with the verse that says to present your bodies as a living sacrifice to God, holy and acceptable. You're familiar with that verse? Well, when you do that, don't forget about your tongue. That's part of your body. That's part of your body. Present that a living sacrifice also. A reaction takes no time at all. It can happen without even thinking. We've all done it. If I make a loud noise right now, you jump. Did you think about it? No, you just did it. And I almost did that because, well, I'm twisted, but I didn't. I didn't do that. But if we did a loud noise right now, you would all jump. That's a reaction. It doesn't take any thought at all. Reactions just happen. A response, however, takes thought. And it allows God time to work. So don't react. Be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. You have a powerful member of your body that can either destroy life or you can build life up. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. God gave you a gift. Do not use it as a weapon. Don't use it as a weapon. broken fountains. We can all look at our own life and go, oh boy, it's one of those sermons. Yep. And now I'm going to go home and I'm going to listen to what it did to my life, and I'm going to call in the maintenance guy. I'm going to need help. I have a broken fountain. I need you to take a look at this. Help me. When I'm not feeling good or when I'm tired, sometimes I don't use the words I would wish I used. Help me with this, and I do need your help. That means you need to surrender. That means you have to understand that you are dependent, not in control. You are dependent. God gave you a gift with your speech. Don't use it as a weapon.